The PlayStation Store has started one of their biggest sales of the year with the mid-year sale. Hundreds of games are on sale, and of course we are going to be covering it. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at 10 awesome deals, and all of these games come in at $9.99 or less. Now, we will be making more videos taking a look at more expensive games, so stay tuned for that, but for those of you that are on a tight budget, stay tuned because all of these games are coming at you very cheap and they're of very high quality. Without further ado, let's get right into this. First up, we have Axiom Verge 50% off for $9.99. Axiom Verge is an excellent Metroidvania style game, and to give you guys a very incredible fact about this game, it was developed by just one person. Yes, Thomas Hab, he did this game solo, and the game itself is absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of games such as Super Metroid on the SNES, this game is going to be right up your alley, and if you just want a more challenging side-scrolling Metroidvania style game, this is going to be perfect for you as well. A lot of upgrades, a lot of collectibles, and overall just a lot of fun, and $9.99 is still a little bit steep of a price point considering this game did release all the way back in early 2015, but considering how high of quality it is, I would say it's worth it. Next up, we have Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which is 80% off down to $3.99. We have a lot of games these days that are emotionally very moving, and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons definitely fits that bill. The game has you partake in the journey of two brothers as they set out to find a cure for their dying father. This is one of those games that's very emotional, and while the gameplay fundamentals aren't anything to write home about, the presentation, storytelling are so good, and for those reasons alone, I would classify Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons as a must-play title, and at just $3.99, it is an absolute bargain. Speaking of absolute bargains, that's what Darksiders Warmastered Edition and Darksiders 2 Deathinitive Edition are. Darksiders Warmastered Edition is 90% off down to just $1.99, and then Darksiders 2 Deathinitive Edition is $2.99. That is 90% off as well, so you can get both for just $5. That's a great deal, especially as we are coming up on the release of Darksiders 3, which is also shaping up pretty nicely. Darksiders is often compared as a cross between God of War and The Legend of Zelda, and I can definitely see that. However, at a surface value, me saying that probably gets your expectations of the game very high. Don't get it twisted, I wouldn't say Darksiders is quite as good as either of those games, but it is a very good game nonetheless. A lot of great gameplay. The story's pretty good. Obviously, from a visual side of things, it is a little bit dated at this point, but considering each game is so cheap, I would still say this is a worthwhile pickup. At the very least, get the first game for just $1.99. Next up, we have Dragon Age Inquisition Game of the Year Edition, 75% off for $9.99. To me, Dragon Age Inquisition was one of the first truly great games on current-gen platforms, and I would say it was the first great RPG that was released on the PlayStation 4. Now, comparatively speaking to a lot of the RPGs that have since been released, yes, I wouldn't say Dragon Age Inquisition is quite as good as The Witcher 3, but it is a very good RPG in its own right, and with this Game of the Year Edition, you get a lot of extra content with multiple add-on packs, and the base game itself already has a sizable amount of content. So $9.99 for this experience. I feel like this is a game that a lot of people missed out on, as it was a game released very early on in this generation, but now that you have the opportunity to check it out for $9.99, I would definitely do so. Next up, we have Playdead's games in Limbo and Inside. There is a bundle available for both of those games, 70% off for $8.99. At this point, I think everyone and their mothers have played Limbo. It is available on just about every single platform, but why not also have it on the PlayStation 4, get some trophies, and experience that masterpiece once again. And Inside was Playdead's follow-up title, and this seems to be a game that a lot of people have yet to check out, maybe because it was originally released as an Xbox One exclusive, and then it came out on PlayStation 4 a little later on with little fanfare, but Inside was just as good of a game as Limbo, and in terms of design and presentation, it's very similar to Limbo in that it's a very atmospheric and very dark game. Inside was released at $20, but now you're getting both games at just $8.99. I would say that's an absolute steal for two masterpiece titles by Playdead. Next up, we have one of the most iconic games of this generation. Rocket League is 50% off for $9.99. Now, Rocket League was originally given out as a PlayStation Plus game when it was released all the way back in 2015, but since then, I know a lot of you guys missed out on that, and you still want to give Rocket League a shot, so why not for $9.99? Now, it does seem like Rocket League has fallen off a little bit compared to where the game was at its peak. Personally, I think the Battle Royale craze took a little bit of the thunder away from Rocket League, but this is still an absolute blast of a game to play. If you got a couple of friends over, this is one of the best couch multiplayer games that you're gonna come across. Very easy to jump in, jump out, but there is that complexity to the game as well, and if you want to get really good at the game, you are gonna have to spend some time with it. I feel like Rocket League is a must-own to any game library. It's just absolutely essential if you want that great multiplayer experience, and to add it to your library for $9.99, that is definitely worth it. Speaking of multiplayer games, next one we have is another fantastic multiplayer game, Helldivers Democracy Strikes Back Edition. Helldivers is an awesome twin-stick shooter coming from the creators of Magicka, and if you've never played Magicka, well, that is another fantastic cooperative experience, and one thing that I could say about Helldivers is that this game just embodies fun. If you're playing the game with a couple of friends, the game is an absolute blast. With friendly fire being turned on, you're gonna have some absolutely insane moments while playing the game. Now again, this is a game that really excels while playing it in multiplayer, so I recommend you to have a couple of friends to play with, and you're gonna have a great time with it. Otherwise, solo, it's just not a great experience, but the multiplayer is so good, so definitely give Helldivers a look, and at just $7.99, I would say this is another worthwhile multiplayer game to add to your library.
Reliable and safe. Become heroes of the Federation. Work together, coordinate your fire, and trust your teammates.
Next up, we have a PlayStation 2 on PS4 game. Gotta give a JRPG a shout, a great one at that, and that is Rogue Galaxy, 77% off for $344. Rogue Galaxy is a PlayStation 2 JRPG that was developed by Level 5, a world-renowned studio that has worked on some fantastic JRPGs, including the recently released Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. On top of that, they've worked on other games such as Dark Cloud 2, White Knight Chronicles, so you know they've been around the block, and Rogue Galaxy is another great JRPG done by them. It's got a pretty great art style that's really helped this game age well, so while it was released over a decade ago, it still holds up pretty well today. Now, of course, it is still a PS2 game, so it does falter in some areas when you compare it to games released recently. However, given the fact that it's only $344, given the fact that you are getting a ton of content for your money, if you're a fan of JRPGs, this is one I would highly recommend you to add to your library. Next up, we have Dishonored Definitive Edition. Developed by Arcane Studios and published by Bethesda, Dishonored was one of the fantastic new IPs of last generation, and of course it spawned Dishonored 2 as well as Dishonored Death of the Outsider this generation. But if you want to see where the series began, you gotta give Dishonored Definitive Edition a look. Now, Dishonored 2 is also on sale. That one is down to $19.99, but if you are just checking out Dishonored for the first time, I would recommend you to try the first game first, and it is considerably cheaper than Dishonored 2. Dishonored 2 is $19.99. However, I will say I did think Dishonored 2 was a better game than the first title. The fact is, the story is very relevant in the first game, and the first game is still excellent. So pick up this, you're gonna play through it, have a great time, and then you will be very eager to check out Dishonored 2 as well. And finally, we have one of the very early PlayStation 4 exclusives. Until Dawn is 75% off for $4.99. Until Dawn, as I mentioned, was one of the early PlayStation 4 exclusives, and it was one of the most surprising PlayStation 4 exclusives. I don't think a lot of people expected supermassive games to deliver with Until Dawn. The game looked rather zany, but it turned out to be a very good game. If you're a fan of cheesy horror movies, this is gonna be right up your alley, and it's a great game to play with a crowd, and it's a game you'll find yourself going back to every now and again. Now, I can definitely understand why people would have been upset with dropping $59.99 with this game, but now that it's down to just $4.99, it's an absolute bargain for that price, and I imagine that this is another PlayStation 4 title that a lot of you guys missed out on, as it was a game released early on in this generation. So if you've yet to check it out, $4.99 is an absolute steal for Until Dawn.
Until dawn, only your choices determine who will survive.
That is going to conclude this video. The PlayStation Store's mid-year sale is going on right now, and there are some tremendous deals, as you can see. Like I said, we will be covering more deals, namely deals that are a little bit more on the expensive side. But for those of you on a tight budget, these games are all $9.99 or less, and they are all great games. That's going to conclude this one. Sound off with your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.